What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast today on October 4th of the year 2021. The Pittsburgh Pirates season is officially over. Postseason baseball is here. Oneil Cruz showed out in his debut. What are some of me and Gary Morgan's favorite moments of the season? And how do we think the playoffs is going to shape out now that we actually know the bracket? We're going to cover all that and more today. And thank you for making Locked On Pirates your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, and let's get right into it.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back, everybody. How are we doing today on the Locked On Pirates podcast? It is your host, Ethan Smith, who does the most, and joined today by Mr. Gary Morgan Jr. I always like to throw the junior in there just so he doesn't make himself feel old, but we're in living color on YouTube for the first time here on the Locked On Pirates podcast. Gary, how are you doing today? We have no more Pirates baseball, but how are you doing today? Everything good?
I'm doing good. Yeah, it was a pretty nice day today, and I really enjoyed Oneil Cruz getting a shot. And good things are on the horizon.
Starting on Wednesday, by the way, I mean I talked last week about the Roensy Contreras start. Thought that was phenomenal. And then it really seemed like after that, the Oneil Cruz traction started, and I talked with Adam on Friday about it, and we didn't know if it was really going to happen. There was a little rumor that it might happen. I know Jason Mackey was talking to the AAA players, and Oneil Cruz was unavailable at the time. There was no specification of why he was unavailable. And then, of course, Hector Gomez comes out, says that he gets called up. And, I mean, realistically, I think Bob Nutting, and I rarely ever mention this guy on this podcast, by the way. Everybody knows this. I cannot stand him. But if he does not look at what happened over the last 2 days with these fans, just for one player and how they reacted to almost he could have killed a fly by accident and they would have called it the second coming of Babe Ruth in Pittsburgh. Or he could have went 0 for 5 and made 2 putouts and everybody would have been like, cool, we got to see Oneil Cruz. But what were your initial thoughts? I mean, I think he did everything you expected him to do over the course of 2 days. It's the smallest sample size you could have gotten, but what were your thoughts on it, Gary? What were your thoughts on Oneil Cruz, number 61, the God?
Well, he did do everything I expected, to be honest. He struck out because he flailed at a bunch of pitches down and away, and he ran into one, and I expected him to do that too. Mm-hmm. And he bobbled a few balls at short. You know, I mean, it's really what you expect from a rookie when he comes up. And to be honest, he's not ready. This was nothing more than just a little bit of a show. And unless something miraculous happens in the offseason, I think he'll start in AAA. Really do.
Yeah, and I believe that's where he should start too as well. I don't think anybody needs to fool themselves here. Roensy Contreras had a phenomenal start, but it was one start against a team that was not very good in the Chicago Cubs. And Oneil Cruz, we saw him for 2 games. Realistically, both of those guys should start in AAA next year. It's just how it should be. It's not going to be like the most popular decision among the fan base. The fan base is going to want to see these guys. They're like, hey, we got to see them in 2021 for a couple days. We want to see them now. And it's like, no, that's not how this needs to go, especially on the Roensy Contreras side as well, and even the Oneil Cruz side, because I think towards this end of the season now, Cole Tucker may have done enough to earn a roster spot. I mean, he did a lot in these last couple weeks where he actually has now made Ben Cherington and company have to think about what they do with him in the offseason, on top of the fact that you already have Kevin Newman, Michael Chavis, Hoy Park, Rodolfo Castro, all those guys, and then you have to figure out where you put Oneil Cruz into that mix. I personally would say he's probably going to fit in the middle of the season spot. If he goes into AAA next year, does the same things he's doing, I'm pretty sure he would be up around the middle of the year, depending on how things go. But there's a lot of questions now in the middle infield. There's a lot of options, but there's a ton of questions now with what we've seen over the past couple weeks.
Yeah, we've seen this coming for a long time. And the Pirates certainly didn't do anything to take some of those questions away. At the deadline this year, they brought in Diego Castillo and Marcano and Park, and it's a mess. There's a ton of players that can play the middle infield, and to be honest, I don't know how you go away from Kevin Newman the way he played shortstop. Now, if Oneil Cruz is going to hit 30 home runs and he wants to play shortstop and he's going to come up and take Kevin Newman's spot. It's not like I'm sitting here saying it's not going to happen. I just think people just need to take the excitement from what they saw, kind of back it off a little bit. I'm not saying he has no shot to make the team out of spring. I just think what you saw in those 2 games was evidence that it's still kind of a little bit of work in progress. Even the home run, you really don't want him swinging at that ball.
No, you don't.
I mean, he dropped to one knee. He looked like Sidney Crosby on the power play. Like that's not what you want to see him do. He's talented enough that he can do that, and that's cool, but that's not the kind of swing you really want him to be taking. So, I mean, there's things he has to learn, and the league will push back, especially if they know you've got a dead spot.
Yep. And we saw that with Ke'Bryan Hayes this year too. The league found out he had a dead spot. It was up and in, and he struggled with it for a while, picked it up near at the end of the season. But I agree with you, though. I think Oneil Cruz did everything you pretty much expected him to do. His plate discipline is kind of still not there yet. He goes at anything that's low. I don't understand why. The dude is 6'7". If it's not at your waist, it's probably too low. I mean, realistically, all weekend, all you heard was, oh, he doesn't play shortstop. He plays tall stop. Okay. Also, a fun little tidbit I saw. Cole Tucker, I believe it was Cole Tucker and Cruz when they started on Saturday night, were the tallest tandem in the middle infield in MLB history, I believe. I think it was the Nationals last year that were the ones that
I was at that game, and I got to tell you, it's more visible than you can see on TV. Just how hulking they are in comparison to everybody else. It's crazy.
Well, and it was funny because I remember there was a mound visit in the first game that he played, and he was standing off the mound, and then there's that little dirt spot, and he was about as tall as who was pitching Saturday night. I'm going to be honest, I was very distracted. I was mainly paying attention to Cruz, so was it Max Kranick?
Max Kranick.
Yeah, okay. I was like, I knew it was either Max Kranick or Will Crow. It was one of those 2 guys, which, no offense to Max Kranick, he pitched a phenomenal game that night as well. But I just remember seeing Cruz, and he's like up here still. And if I ever had him on the podcast on here, I mean, you wouldn't be able to see him. He'd have to have the webcam like this to be able to see the guy. But I mean, realistically, in all seriousness, I think we saw what we really wanted to see from Oneil Cruz this weekend. And it's good that we did. And another way next year that you can watch some of this stuff is with Directv Stream. Directv Stream, of course, helps you with not having remotes. You don't need any of that stuff anymore. Make sure that, guess what? If you have Directv Stream, basketball, baseball, football, all of it's about to be on right now. You can make your TV super simple. Get your TV together. It brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device again. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directv.com. Compatible device required, all that good stuff. And today's episode is also brought to you by Get Upside. My listeners are getting up to 25 cents off per gallon of gas that they fill up on. Gary, you already know that gas is expensive, so of course you got to get some money off of it. And when you use code baseball on Get Upside, you already get 25 cents off, but then you get an additional 25 cents off. So you're getting $50 off a gallon of gas if you use the code baseball on Get Upside with me, the host of Locked On Pirates, Ethan Smith, live in living color now with Mr. Gary Morgan Jr. There's a lot of moments from this season. I will go ahead and say this was my first full regular season covering. I actually don't even think I was here yet when the season was going last year. So I want to thank you guys. Thank you, Gary, as well, for helping me get through this season. because covering a baseball team for 162 games, I have found is actually very hard. It is very difficult. And I've had you, I've had Adam, I've had all the other hosts of Locked On, and I appreciate all of you guys for helping out. But there was a lot of moments from this season, but which one standed out to you as some of your favorite moments from this year? I already have one in my head. I feel like you might already have it too. So it's going to be really awkward if you say it, because then I'm not going to have an answer.
Well, it was a game I was at. I mean, it was the 71 celebration. We were celebrating the 71 championship and Jacob Stallings' walk-off home run. I mean,
and that was the one I was thinking of.
It was unbelievable. But the Pirates have treated us to a ton of comeback wins this year.
Yes.
So hard to complain about the fight that the team showed. I mean, as bad as their record was, they didn't give up. Almost half their victories were come from behind.
Yeah, and I know I believe they were like either third or like top 3 in baseball in that category, like being down 3 runs and coming back and winning. I believe the number was like 11 or 12. Like it was like a really weird number that I saw. But I mean, another thing that I also wanted to mention this year, and I know this is going to be like kind of a boring answer in terms of favorite moments, but the Pirates had a ton of defensive plays this year that you can go back and look on and say, this is a legitimate play of the year candidate. Ben Gamble had 2 in like a matter of 4 days, about a month and a half ago. Cole Tucker the other night, I don't know how you don't put that in there. I mean, he looked like a freaking wide receiver trying to catch a punt, and he caught the ball anyways. And then Ke'Bryan Hayes, I think a lot of people still remember this one. I know it was Yadier Molina, whatever, but he basically threw a ball from the St. Louis Cardinals like bench, or the Pirates bench, to throw out Yadier Molina. And not to mention this, though, but you looked at 2020, and the team was horrible regardless. And defense was the bad part, too. Like, it was like the worst thing. Obviously, you cut some of that off with Josh Bell. But, I mean, you look at Jacob Stallings, Kevin Newman, Ben Gamble, Brian Reynolds, even, like, at times, and even Ke'Bryan Hayes as well. All of those guys just really meshed together really well. I believe the Pirates ended the season tied with the best fielding percentage in baseball, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure did. No, they sure did.
And that's just something where, again, when you're a rebuilding team, that means something. But I remember we talked about defense and rebuilding and stuff. You're really looking for bats, and the defense should come after. But you still have to be able to say, Derek Shelton came into the season with a mission to make this defense better, and he made it better.
Yeah,
and
it's one of the few things that they actually could control, because they couldn't make the talent grow faster. It was not going to happen to go out and get talent this year, like at least major league ready talent. That would have been like flushing money down the toilet, to be honest with you. So, yeah, defense is what they could improve on. It's what they improved on. Now, I'd like to see them teach their pitchers to use that defense a little bit more.
Yes.
But so be it. They didn't make progress in that area.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and get into this part 2. I know this is a lot of stuff. We were doing favorite moments, all that good stuff, but it's October 4th. It's the off season. 3 things that you're looking for that you think should be like priorities from day one of after the World Series for the Pirates that they should be looking to do this off season. Like, what should they be looking for?
I mean, obviously they have to make the right decisions with the 40-man. We'll see what they do there. As far as like free agent acquisitions, or let's just call it acquisition of major league ready talent, they have to go after a veteran pitcher at least, maybe 2. I do think they have a good young crop, but I don't think they have a lot of guys that are ready for what they're asking them to do yet. And the next wave of real good pitchers, it's 2 years away. So unless they want to waste the entire first wave of bats that has just now been called up to AAA and still some sitting in AA, I suggest they go out and get some pitching, because it's not going to line up. So, and I wouldn't do 1-year deals with guys either. I'd go out and try to get people for 2-3 years and ride it out. You can always trade them later. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Just go out and get some guys that matter. Maybe even pick up a garbage contract like Madison Bumgarner, David Price, somebody like that, Tanner Roark. Somebody that people want to get rid of because they don't want to pay him anymore because of the stage their team's in. Pick up the salary. Eat it. They have plenty of room in payroll.
Yeah.
Bring them in. Maybe send them a lottery pick the opposite direction.
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't be mad at that at all. And we always bring up the fun Twitter stuff. The Oakland A's also finished their season this year, and there's a need for an outfielder, I would say, with Kanan Smith and Jigba and Matthew Frazier and a lot of these guys still kind of feeling themselves out in the minors. I've already seen it, and I don't know how to feel about it because it's something I feel like really could happen randomly, but I don't think it will. Is there a chance that Starling Marte makes a trip back to Pittsburgh? Is there actually like the smallest slim chance that he comes back?
No.
No. Yeah.
I mean, for one thing, his very first official act under this new general manager was to tell him he didn't want to play for him.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. They're not going to bring him back. And to be honest, they don't need that.
No, they don't.
Like, they needed an outfielder this year. Next year, they don't. Next year, they've got Ben Gamble coming back on arbitration. I'm almost 100% they do that. Brian Reynolds, I think he's going to play. Probably. He might work out. And then you got maybe they go out and get and retain Yoshi, even though I think he's awful out there.
He is.
It's probably more of a DH, but hey, for that bat, if it plays, right? And then you've got Travis Swaggerty right there, who should have been ready this year and probably going to be ready next year. And the names you just mentioned. And then some of the infielders we were just talking about could play out there. Even Oneil Cruz could. Really good.
Yeah.
So let's just like put that in the rear view, because I think that was a this year problem that I'm not going to go ahead and pretend still exists next year. And I don't think Starling Marte patches that hole anyway. I really don't.
No, he's not the same player he was when he was in Pittsburgh. He's just not.
I will say they need to go out and get a better backup catcher. That may seem like a really small thing, but the next guy they have in their pipeline that I think you could even consider a prospect is Benz, and man, the defense ain't there. I'm telling you. Now they can teach him stuff. I'm not saying he won't improve, but I would not count on him coming up and supplanting even somebody as paltry as Michael Perez. So I'd go out and get a nice veteran backup, because Jacob Stallings carried a lot more weight than you really want your starting catcher to carry this year. And to ask him to do it 2 years in a row, boy, that's dangerous.
Yeah, it is. And I talked about that last week as well as being a major thing when I was doing my grades for catchers. Is it's like you'll get this one game from Michael Perez. Like, it's like one game and he'll do phenomenal. He'll look good. Like, everything looks fine. And then for the next 30, he just doesn't do anything. And realistically, it's not even just being bad. He just doesn't look good while he's doing it either. Like, his swing just looks awful. He looks like he, personally, no offense to attack the guy, but he just doesn't look like he really cares to me. Like, he's like, oh, cool, I got out again, and then he's just done. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And there's so much wrong with his technique and his swing.
I always try not to interpret things like that, but
yeah,
I honestly can't sit here and tell you that I haven't seen or felt some of that same stuff with him. And to me, if you're a backup catcher and you're not hitting, at the very least, you have to be able to make contact in situational ball. You have to be able to advance the runner. You have to be able to get that sac fly. You have to be able to do something. Lay down a bunt.
Yeah.
Guy's not doing anything. I mean, I'm sorry. That's an experiment that has to end, if you ask me. And the defense, I'm so happy that they finished with the pass ball record.
That means so much, right?
I don't care.
Along with the 101 losses that you had, too, because Michael Perez maybe swings a couple of those games if he gets that sac fly or that bloop single that you really were looking for. But don't worry, he didn't allow a pass ball this year. Just don't worry about that, guys. That's like breaking news here at Locked On Pirates. The Pirates did not have a pass ball all year, I don't think.
I mean, it's a joke, but
yeah,
I shouldn't diminish it because, I mean, it means a lot to the catchers, I'm sure. And they have done great work back there. But I'm sorry, you have to hit a little bit. You just have to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a guy that's an easy upgrade. That's an easy decision. One of the easiest they have on this team. So,
yeah,
get
and
it
it
done.
also, so basically, I think I asked you for 3. You said 1 or 2 veteran starting pitchers, backup catcher, and there was a third one that you threw. Oh, the 40-man roster spots.
Yep.
Of course, here at Locked On Pirates, we'll be covering all of that. Obviously, not right. I don't think most of that will happen until after the World Series. I don't think it can even happen until the season ends anyway, right?
Well, they can move on from people if they want to before then, but it's I think 5 or 6 days after the World Series they have
Okay.
to protect people for the Rule 5 draft. So that's when it'll
That'll
get
be a
done.
fun time. That'll be a lot like the trade deadline and free agency all over again for us.
Yeah.
We'll be sitting here at 4 a.m. Oh, the Pirates did not protect so-and-so. And it's just going to be like, all right.
Locking myself in a room for the next couple days trying to figure it out, to be honest. So
Oh, yeah, of course. Well, while you lock yourself in that room, Gary, make sure you go get a Built Bar for yourself. Built Bar, of course, is the best tasting protein bar on the market. What's even better about Built Bars is we usually have ad reads, but I don't even have to look at them anymore because I just know how good Built Bar is. They have 9 unique different flavors ranging from cherry barca, German chocolate, my favorite cookies and cream, coconut brownie, anything you could pretty much think of. They have 9 different unique flavors. You can even try a mix box of those different flavors as well, where you're basically getting 18 Built Bars, all fun stuff. They're obviously healthy too. I wouldn't be promoting it to people if it wasn't. They have about 4 to 5 grams of net carbs and sugar, 130 to 180 calories. I actually had 1 or 2 before this podcast, so that's probably why I'm a little like all over the place and jittery right now and have a lot of energy despite the Steelers' loss yesterday. But of course, if you look at the little promo code we got right below me, not below Gary, right below me, promo code LOCKED15 at BuiltBar.com. You will get 15% off of your next order, meaning you could already be an existing customer and still take part in this unique offer from Built Bar. And guess what? Let them know that Ethan Smith of the Locked On Pirates podcast sent you. And we talked last week about what's going on in baseball. And I'm kind of mad about how things went yesterday because I wanted chaos. I wanted literal chaos. I'm sorry to AJ Andrews and the people at Locked On Jays, Locked On Red Sox, Locked On Yankees, Stacey Gotsulias, and everybody involved. Ty Dan Gonzalez, who called Tyler Anderson a literal god, and then Tyler Anderson is now the reason they're not in the playoffs. But it wouldn't have mattered anyway. But I wanted literal chaos. And the Yankees get the walk-off, which I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest Yankees person in the world, but that was still cool to see that they got a walk-off to get into the postseason. The Red Sox had to claw back against the Nationals where it looked like Josh Bell just turned the page and was like, all right, I'm knocking this team out of the playoffs single-handedly by myself. And they turned it around and won. But I really felt bad for the Blue Jays yesterday. They did what they were supposed to do all weekend. And realistically, down the stretch, mostly of what they were supposed to do in general. And that might be, in my personal opinion, the funnest team that we've seen in a while that's not in the postseason.
Well,
like just based off of offensively, I mean, Teoscar Hernandez, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., George Springer, Bo Bichette, Kevin Biggio when he's there. I mean, just so many different options, and they're not in the postseason. But then me and Gary, who the San Francisco Giants finally shut up everybody, and they were like, all right, we won the division now. Can you stop saying that we're frauds? And they now have won the NL West. So the playoffs are set. I believe we get Yankees and Red Sox first on Tuesday, and then Cardinals and Dodgers, on Wednesday. Who's winning those games? Like, putting you on the spot, who do you think wins those games? I understand, especially coming from us as Pirates fans, we know that anything can literally happen in a wild card game. So how are we feeling about those games?
I like the Red Sox pitching better than the Yankees.
100%.
So, I'd go Red Sox in that one. In a one-game thing, yeah. I think I'd go Red Sox. Plus, they're secretly my cheat team. And how do you go against the Cardinals right now? Really? The way they finished the season, boy. I think I'll go Cardinals.
Spicy picks. We like that.
I'd rather
Spicy
it be the
picks.
Dodgers for the reasons I said last week, but I
Yep.
think I'll go Cardinals.
See, because then what I feel like is going to happen is if the Cardinals win this game on Wednesday, you're going to see all these stories come out like, you don't need to spend a lot of money to do this and this. And
Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
why I want the Dodgers to sweep.
and the card, because then you look at the markets after that in the playoffs. It would be Atlanta. Atlanta's spent quite a bit of money lately. San Francisco, who, I mean, they kind of spent money, but it's not like their payroll was ridiculous. The Milwaukee Brewers are a small market, and then the Cardinals. So you'd have a series between the Giants and the Cardinals and the Brewers and the Braves. That doesn't exactly spit like Dodgers, Cubs, like the normal teams that you're used to. And I agree with you. It's like I would like to see the Cardinals win, but for the reasons that me and you said last week, I really want to see my prediction happen of Dodgers versus Yankees. I'd hate to watch it.
I agree. The worst thing would be for Tampa to win. I think that would pretty much prove out that it can be done, right?
Yeah.
And then there'd be another team besides Kansas City that everyone can point to as the darlings of the small market. The Brewers have the pitching to get through this.
They do.
They're not a big market either. And the Brewers I could live with, though, because they're spending what I think is an appropriate level for a team in their market size, which coincidentally Pittsburgh is and could spend. So no matter what Bob Nutting does, that could be the level they can get to. Yeah, just to be clear, because I know you talked about Nutting earlier, but I don't rail on Nutting right now because right now they don't need to be spending money.
No.
But when the time comes, believe me, I'll be loud.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and do a little story since we're coming here to the end. Mom and Dad, I know you listen to this podcast. Like I'm talking to my parents here while I'm saying this. My mom the other day, and you'll probably like this question that she asked me. She said, "How have you enjoyed doing the podcast?" I said, "I enjoy it a lot. I'm learning a lot about the team. I learn a lot about more things from people like you and like Jason Mackey, all the people that I watch." And she said, "Give me 3 reasons why I should really be expecting the Pirates to be good in due time." And
I said, answer that, or are you going to answer that?
I answered it as this. I said, 1, they haven't had a prospect pool like this in a while, like an actual pool, not like 3 players, like how we've talked about the Mitch Keller dilemma where they were just hoping he was good. I mean, I literally said they have a top 5 farm system from top to bottom. You know who showed that this past week in 2 weeks? Greensboro and Bradenton, who are both competing for championships, and Bradenton won it. I know it doesn't mean a lot in the grand scheme of things, but that shows you that your team is doing something. And you look at the balance too. I believe 16 of the top 30 prospects are pitchers and the other 14 are position players. That's a good balance. That's a pretty good balance. So her response was, well, how can you know these guys are good? I said, it's like a dartboard. You have these amount of guys, and odds are they're professional baseball players. 1 or 2 of them is going to work out. You just don't know which one it is yet. But it's on Bob Nutting and Ben Cherington and the entire staff to choose those guys. My other 2 were things are changing in this offseason with the new CBA, so we don't know what's going on. And then the third one was just believe. So I stole from the Seattle Mariners. But realistically, I feel like those were good answers. But, I mean, it's a good question to ask is what should Pirates fans really be gripping to say, where is this team going moving forward to eventually get back to the point of even where the Mariners were, where they were a game away from the playoffs on the last day of the season.
Yeah, I mean, the farm system is encouraging. It's built with a different kind of talent than they've had in the past. And you can look at the top 30 and think what you will about those players. Some of them are going to make it, some of them aren't. We all know that. You just said that. What's really impressive is that you've got 6 in MLB's top 100 and a couple right on the outside looking in.
Yep.
That's what's impressive. And that's really what ups the odds, if you will. that some of those players are going to make it. Plus, they've got some talent here. It's young talent. It's growing talent. And they have 0 payroll commitments.
Yep.
So when they need it, in theory, they've got the money to bring in somebody to fill in those holes. So if you want to believe, that's why. At least as far as the farm system goes. Second, I can't for the life of me convince myself that Ben Cherington took this job without some kind of an assurance he was going to have what he needed to do it.
Yeah.
His reputation precedes him. He's a world champion, and there's a reason. So I think that's something that I kind of hang my hat on as far as like belief that something is going to get done here. And I think the development system is showing signs of taking a real step forward.
Mm-hmm.
Oneil Cruz is a great example of that. Really, just he's made a pretty tremendous jump this year. His swing's completely changed. It took forever, but Cole Tucker's swing's finally changed. You know, we're starting like Max Kranick jumped from AA to the major leagues this year. I mean, like, and it wasn't just out of necessity. He showed it. He added velocity. He added a couple really solid breaking pitches. That's the kind of stuff that you look at. And hopefully something pans out from it. I mean, that's really where it's at. And I also don't think they're done bringing in talent. So there'll be more.
And the thing I tell people too, as we get near the end of the episode, they have a top 5 pick again next year. So they're going to have a lot of allotment in the draft. So this farm system is only going to get better. That's going to be the next wave after that. That's what the goal is here, is you want to start making waves of it, not just one wave, but waves of it. Like, you know, you want it to look like my hand just did very awkwardly. But Gary, as we come to the end of today's first episode with you on YouTube, where can people find all of your work? For some reason, I don't know why, but it didn't show your Twitter on there, so you can let everybody know.
Well, because it was my responsibility to write my name, and I didn't write it. So, let's see. You can find all of my writing at InsideTheBucksBasement.com. And just for perspective, this year I watched 161 baseball games and wrote 216 stories. There's a lot of content up there.
What's the one game
check
that
it
you
out.
missed?
One when I was on vacation. I promised my wife. So,
there you go. Okay.
And,
we'll give you a pass.
And my podcast is on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcasting Network. It's called Pirates Fan Forum. Every Friday night at 6.
You guys might want to listen to that right now instead of anything about the Steelers, because Pittsburgh media is going to be very interesting this week, guys. But you guys can also follow me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan right there. I always still get the hand thing wrong. But you guys can follow me there. You can also follow this podcast on YouTube, Odyssey, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find Gary stuff. You can find mine. So that's where you can usually find all that stuff. And on Twitter, we're like this close to 700 followers. So we're getting there. I kind of want to get to that mark at the end of the postseason. But guys, thank you so much for always coming on. And if you want to listen to anything about Major League Baseball right now, Paul French is Sullivan, but please call him Sully, has everything you need right now on Locked On MLB about everything going on and all the chaos that comes with the postseason. Gary, thank you so much for coming on the YouTube today. It was an awesome episode. And guys, we will see you on the flip side. Boom.